Sheldon Pont, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's good to be with you, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yes.
By the end of it,
Yeah.
you can decide if it worked out or not.
Time will tell, yes.
Yeah. We met, how many years ago was it? I mean, must have been back. I'm going to look at my notes. We met, oh my gosh, we met at least 5, 6 years ago. And
I,
so,
uh, I think you're right, and through the networking group provisors.
hmm
And, just FYI for your listeners or watchers, I'm pretty fussy about those I hang around with, and I don't do a lot of these, but
hmm
I consented, graciously to do it with you because I found that you were among a distinct minority in this networking group you and I belonged in, who were kind of a credit to your profession. And whereas most of the other people in these various meetings that you and I attended would extol the virtue of how many deals they've done and blah, 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 blah. To
hmm
me, it's always about not how many shots you take or how many passes you throw or how many times you get up the bat.
hmm
It's how many championship rings you have.
Ah,
And you always you're wired like me. Let me show you my championship rings, not how many times I got up the bat. So
hmm
I was very favorably impressed with that, and in contrast to many of those in your profession who hold a real estate license and just rely upon relationships to get listings and sticking up for lease signs and praying for rain.
hmm
You approach it with the professional acumen that any discipline should be approached. So that's what you know kept me in you in my orbit, and hopefully vice versa. So
Well, I appreciate that. You're one of the most memorable people I've met improvisers. Even though you're not. I haven't seen you improvise, so you're out of improvisers at this
I
point, right?
left about a year and a half ago. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But I also, even after you left, I was thinking, you know something, he would be really great to stay in touch with. And so I appreciate you taking the time because I know you're a really, really busy man. I mean, I'm not just saying that, but I know you're incredibly busy and taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. It's nice
Well,
to get us in front of people and be
my,
able to talk. Yeah.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for your kind words. I do appreciate it, even though you're lying through your teeth. I appreciate it very, very much. So tell me about real quick. I mean, because we're going to get to some real estate hell stories, because I know you've got some great ones. But Vandermaid, is that your own company or?
I have four partners, and we're a full service commercial real estate firm with each of the partners specializing in an aspect of commercial real estate. My niche
Mhm,
is, well, is the shopping center mixed use arena,
mhm.
planning, development, leasing, sales. And then I've also spent a good portion of my career simultaneously representing merchants and restaurants with the site selection and lease negotiation, kind of a nice balance between the two. And
But when you're talking about the deals that you're talking about are the deals that most people only can imagine. I mean, we're talking about huge, huge deals, huge shopping centers, and so give us a snapshot of what your sweet spot is, in when it comes in when we're talking about that arena.
I learned very early on from my mentor that what the thing to be mindful of in the shopping center business, particularly enclosed malls, unlike any other aspect of real estate, all tenants, every tenant reports sales annually. And
Mm-hmm.
if they achieve a certain threshold uh, above that number, they would pay an additional rent to the landlords, so-called
Mm-hmm.
percentage rent.
Mm-hmm.
That's the distinction of the shopping center business. So I
Mm-hmm.
learned from my mentor to pay laser focused attention on tenant mix,
Mm-hmm.
how many women's stores, kids stores, jewelry stores, shoe stores, so that it doesn't look like the tenant mix was created by Helen Keller, you know, and with a little help from Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. So it's all about. So I became my DNA got implanted by my mentor, who was an expert in that arena, learning
Mm-hmm.
how to conceive what became to be known as a merchandising tenant mix to
Okay.
minimize the vacancies and enhance the experience for the customers. It's more interesting, and also optimize the return for the merchants. So that's really been my area of distinction within
Hmm.
my profession. Um, and then lastly, on representing merchants and restaurants, um, things are not always what they appear to be, and trying to pick locations, not necessarily based upon, well, I look for tenant mix. If I'm going to put a good jewelry store or shoe store, I don't want to put them between the 7-Eleven and Subway, if they're trying
Right.
to be Cartier. So again, it's
Hmm.
trying to harmonize the needs and expectations of my retail restaurant clients with the physical footprint and the demographics of the trading area.
Hmm. That makes perfect sense. What got you into the commercial arena in the first place? I mean, you seem like you could have done anything.
Well, I practiced law for about 15 minutes and realized that wasn't for me, and had the good fortune to get introduced to a gentleman who was a pioneer in the mall development business through a mutual friend.
Hmm.
And he saw something in me that I apparently didn't see in myself, and went in as a basically kind of a grunt trainee, learned the business from the ground up, and I'm laughing at somewhat some of the things that you said. I think at this point, a lot of my market distinction is having outlived my competitors. Uh, a combination of learning the business, from a guru, and then doing good work, and having clients come back and be satisfied, more than satisfied, with the results of my efforts.
Yeah. How many years have you been doing it now?
I had a problem with it. Did you ask a question? How many years I've been doing? You don't see the gray in the beard here.
Oh, but
Uh,
you look distinguished.
Long time. Let's say north of 40.
Wow. That's no
Yeah,
joke. That's a
yes,
lot of
sir.
experience. Do you
Yeah.
take on smaller deals too, or is it mostly? I mean, I would think that if you're known for these huge ones, that those would be your focus.
Well, like all of us, I'm a mere mortal, limited to my arms and legs. And last time I looked, there's only, I think, 10 days in the week, and 36 hours in the day. So I have a finite bandwidth.
Hmm.
But since I came up in the business and started representing little people, when I have the bandwidth, I love to do that, because in those situations, I'm often the difference between success and failure for those clients, rather than degrees of success when I'm representing the big people. I mean, they're both gratifying
Hmm.
opportunities. I wish I had more time to represent smaller people, but you catch me at the right time. I love to do this stuff. I love to represent people, small town, middle America type tenants. Um, and some of the war stories I'm going to share with you, frankly, are all within the arena of the little people.
Well, let's get to that then. I'm sure that you got some real estate hell to share.
One that comes to mind was a independent restaurant, a street front restaurant in a city, to be nameless to protect the guilty. But as for illustration, the geography doesn't really matter. And the merchant had been there many, many years, and it was a family run. A husband and wife ran basically a breakfast type, an IHOP operation run by independent people. And they'd been there over 30 years, and they were located in a neighborhood that was changing. It was evolving, gentrifying, I think, is the word of the day. And
Hmm.
they were fortunate that the lease that they were on, the market had changed, and they could sublease it for a lot more money than they were making, and they were tired, and wanted to kind of take a hike. Anyway, so with that as background, I represented a merchant who wanted to take over their lease, another restaurant, and looked at their lease, and there's a clause in the lease, very common, Scott, in most commercial leases, that tenants can sublet with the landlord's approval,
Hmm.
which he can't unreasonably withhold, and but any profit on the subleasing goes to the landlord. It's a
Hmm.
very enforceable lease, very very enforceable clause in the lease. It's been argued in court, and tenants don't even fight it anymore. They're just happy enough to get out from underpaying rent to get someone else to step in their shoes. So that said,
Sure.
the landlord said to this street merchant, I'm happy to have Sheldon's replacement tenant, but the delta on the rent, the difference goes all to me as a landlord. Wow.
Hmm.
That wouldn't have stopped the deal, but it occurred to me that I needed to create some vulnerability
Hmm.
on the part of the landlord. So I pre-cleared this with the restaurant, the street merchant. I said, I'm going to go meet with the landlord. I'm going to play this card. I don't want you with me,
Hmm.
lest you start laughing when I play this card with the
Okay.
landlord. So I
Hmm.
walked into the landlord's office, never having met him. I had my coat on. It was wintertime. I didn't take the coat off. And I said, well, I'm just here to deliver a message. My client has gotten reinvigorated, he and his wife, and they've just decided to reopen the restaurant. So there will be no subletting. There will be
Hmm.
no, by the way, the delta on the rent between what they were paying and what my tenant was willing to pay was like $1.5 million over 5 years. So with that, I got up and left. And the landlord, well, don't wait a minute, Sheldon. Wait a second.
Hmm.
Maybe we can do. I mean, it's out of the blue. It was the only thing I can think of to get the landlord's attention because
Hmm.
he saw the $1.5 million on the rent and wasn't willing to even throw us a bone, 10%,
Right.
20%. So he said, let me think it over. Stay here, young fella. He came back 5 minutes later and he said, all right, 60% of the increase in rent to me, 40% to the restaurant on the street. And I said, well, you've got the right numbers, Mr. Landlord. You got them going in the wrong direction. Okay.
Right.
And if you hesitate more than 5 minutes, we're going to up the ante. So he said, fine, I'll give 60% to your tenant and your street and 40% to me. So, sometimes you got to, play the role and find areas of potential vulnerability where
Hmm.
none seemingly exist. So if he had called my bluff and said, nice try, Sheldon, but it's still 100% zero, don't
Hmm.
ask me what my next move would have been. Okay.
Well, I think sometimes once you've got a lot of experience, you can kind of feel when you can make those moves and not make those moves.
And the other situation that comes to mind is
Hmm.
a little local merchant up here in a very prosperous suburb had been approached by a developer who had bought up the whole block of property where this merchant, it was a barber shop, where the barber shop was
Hmm.
located, and was planning on tearing everything down and putting up a new, uh, rather large mixed use development with street level retail, apartments and office above, and parking. And so about a $200 million investment, massive project.
Hmm.
And he had proceeded to work out a lease buyout with all of the stores on the street except the barber shop. That was the one that was left. And he approached him. I was not involved in the project, by the way. This was directly between this developer and the barber shop. And he offered the barber $450,000 to take a hike, and which was more money than the barber would have ever seen on his own cutting hair, and said that if you want to stay in the barbering business, I'll relocate you wherever you want, and I'll pay the whatever. So enter Sheldon through one of the barber's customers. I don't go to barber shops anymore, as is apparent. That's out of my realm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the barber said through his customer said, "Do you think you can better this deal, Sheldon?" And I said, "I'm not in the promises business, but based on the $200 million that the developer is planning on spending here, I think that there may be a little more juice we can squeeze out of them. I'll give you
Hmm.
my best efforts." And
Hmm.
he was concerned that if I went and tried to squeeze some more, by the way, and the closing papers were at the barbershop's attorney's office. They're ready to ink the deal.
Hmm.
So he was nervous that if I called the developer, I would annoy him and he'd pull the $450,000 offer. I said, believe me, that's not going to happen. Okay.
Hmm.
He needs your space. Upshot, I called the developer. Again, I cleared this ahead with the barber, and I said to the developer, and I didn't put on a Zoom call because I didn't want him to see me smirking on the call.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'm here just to deliver a message. The barber's changed his mind. He's now declining your $450,000 offer. He's just going to stay there, live out his lease, and happy as a clam. There was
Mm-hmm.
silence on the other end of the phone.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't know what to say. Anyway, he said, I'll get back to you. 2 days later, he calls and he says, I'm raising the offer from $450,000 to $800,000. Wow. And I said to him, again, pre-cleared with the barber, I said, thank you, but no thank you. We're not taking the
Mm-hmm.
deal. We're going to stay in the bar in the haircutting business. And he went crazy on the phone. Okay. And uttered that famous phrase, everything is for sale, Sheldon. So I
Uh-huh.
said, well, we've all seen Mrs. Smith who didn't want to sell the farmhouse, and the developer built over her and around her and whatever. And so anyway, so 2 days later, he calls the barber and tries to get the wire transfer number of the barber's bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And the barber calls me 3 days later and said they just wired $2.7 million into my account.
2.7.
2.7. What do I do, Sheldon? I said, you have to
Wow.
ask the question. Okay. So the message is, as sophisticated and wealthy as this developer was, he made a critical mistake. He didn't call my bluff in saying,
Mm-hmm.
Sheldon, thank you, but you're being unreasonable. I'll build around him. I don't need him. If he had
Mm-hmm.
done that, he would have forced me, Scott, to counter offer. Okay.
Right.
I wasn't going to counter offer until he was walking away.
Mm-hmm.
And he never threatened to walk away. So sometimes things are not always what they appear to be. So that was very gratifying. By the way, the deal was done a few years ago, and the barber never decided to reopen
Uh-huh.
with
Oh,
2.7
I love that
million bucks in
story.
his pocket. And last
There-
story
Mhm.
is another little independent restaurant, ethnic restaurant, Greek restaurant, opened just before, about 6 months before COVID struck. This would have been in late. COVID was 2020, so this was 2019. And then COVID strikes, and remember that throughout the country there was this rental abatement where you didn't have to.
Mhm.
Most communities didn't have to pay rent. You weren't excused from paying rent, but you could put it off
Right.
until the pandemic was over. The upshot was, um, in the meantime, this little merchant had signed personally. He was collectible, and the COVID was over, and the landlord went to him, and at that point, he owed a lot of dough for all the rent he
Mhm.
hadn't paid during COVID. And the guy just threw up his hands, gave the keys back to the landlord, and walked away. Tried to walk away, and landlord sued him. I was hired as an expert witness. But meantime, the landlord had sublet the space to another Greek restaurant,
Mhm.
actually a better restaurant. And so you say, what's the problem? The problem was the landlord had leased to a restaurant at half the rent that my client was paying. And
Mhm.
my client had built out the restaurant, so there was no cost for this new tenant to move in. And the landlord had this deal in his back pocket waiting for COVID to end. So what
Mhm.
am I doing there? I was hired as the expert witness by this little local merchant, by his attorney, to challenge the landlords. As you know, have a duty to mitigate damages. If a tenant walks away, whether it's a residential tenant in an apartment or a commercial tenant in a shopping center, landlord has to make good faith effort to bring
Mhm.
in another replacement tenant. And any dealt in the rent is still the responsibility of the tenant who left. Well, in this case, the landlord didn't even expose it to the marketplace. He
Uh-huh.
didn't have. He just had this deal in his back pocket
Mhm.
at half the rent, and who wouldn't take that deal if you're the replacement tenant? Okay,
It's a little
it was a good.
suspicious.
Yeah, so we went to court, and the judge banged the gavel for my client and said he still owes the rent for the 6 months that he didn't pay pre-COVID, but for the 2.5 million bucks rent that he owed during COVID, the judge totally excused him from paying that
Oh,
because the
wow.
landlord
Mhm.
arrogantly and naive, the landlord didn't even hire an expert witness to try to substantiate his actions. So my sensing the marketplace and knowing that the landlord, was being playing cute here
Mhm.
and just trying to get a better replacement tenant at half the rent, he can do that, but he's got to pick up
Hmm.
the other half of the rent, not my client.
Right,
So
right.
again, it's a case of understanding the dynamics of the marketplace and having done enough deals in my like you do in your arena, you know what's
Hmm.
customary, what's commonplace, what's
Exactly.
acceptable. So I just presented the facts to the judge. It wasn't a jury trial, and fortunately, they banged the gavel, which made the difference between my client having to declare bankruptcy and not having to do that. So it was very gratifying.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
I like your style, Sheldon.
Ah, try to be cool under the stress. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have any? You had said something earlier about a charity that was close to your heart. Would you like to? Because we like to shine a light on a charity, and so we would choose which ones and that type of thing. So,
Well, thank you for the opportunity. One of the few things to which I'm grateful to my ex-wife for is having introduced me to a national program. Some of your listeners or viewers may be familiar with. It's called CASA, C-A-S-A,
mhm.
C-A-S-A, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate for Foster Children.
Oh, that's
Every
cool.
every state but one has this program. It's a voluntary. My wife was a volunteer CASA person, and it's you. What you do is you get some training for 25 or 30 hours, and
Hmm.
you're an officer of the court. You're not an attorney or a psychologist, but you're there to advocate
Hmm.
for the foster kids who are caught up in the system all throughout their tenure. You obligate yourself for at least a year, and it was quite gratifying. And as a result of that, we wound up fostering a number of children
Oh, that's great.
separate from her involvement. So it's a wonderful
Hmm.
program.
I love it.
Um,
And it's court appointed. What is it?
again, the letters are CASA, which stands
Uh-huh.
for Court Appointed Special Advocate. Your listeners can Google the program. You just Google CASA program. Actually, every state has it, and it's just a remarkable. And the system works as advocates for children.
I
Um,
love it.
and
I
so
think that's great. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you know that our daughter is adopted.
I did
We
not know that.
we brought her home 14 years ago from Uganda, and so she's going to be 18 this year, and she's doing her Eagle project, and she's bringing awareness and collecting electronics that are going to be sold in Uganda, and then it puts the kids through school, and this is the Mercy Childcare was where she was adopted from. So needless to say, I'm an extremely proud dad to see my daughter going like, I'd like to do this for my Eagle project, and I'm like blown away. Wow, yeah, that's beautiful. And so
What a
we've been working
gratifying story.
together, and she's just doing a great job. She's probably going to, collect at least 50 electronics, like 50 devices. It's iPhones, iPads, laptops, probably at
Right.
least 50 through the school, church, and everything. And it's going to help a lot of kids. And so I'm very proud of my girl. What can I say?
Yeah. Through this CASA work that my ex-wife did, she particularly bonded with one of the. She had several kids for whom she was a CASA. One of
Mm-hmm.
whom she really fell in love with, as did I, and we really wanted to adopt her because
Mm-hmm.
she had been through a whole series of foster homes, and very cruel for the kid, very stressful.
Totally.
And unfortunately, in those days, I'm dating myself, but back in the '80s, as harmful or dangerous as the homes that these kids came out of, the state, in this case, it was Michigan where we were living, was averse to totally cutting
Mm-hmm.
off the biological parent. So our foster daughter Ellen was not available, so we used to joke she wasn't available for sale, so we rented her, and we became her foster parents. And
That's
eventually,
great.
later on, we adopted her. But so we have firsthand experience having gone through the system and seeing these kids make a better
You're a big
life for
softie,
themselves.
Sheldon. You're a big softie. I
Ah,
love this side of
don't
you. No,
don't
seriously, I
get
love
that
this
out there,
side of you
Tom.
because it really feeds the spirit. It makes life so much better when you're able to give back and with our daughter, everyone, so they say things like, well, she's so lucky. And I'm going, gosh, we're lucky. It's such a miraculous thing that's happened to our family, and it's
Right.
changed the course of our family for forever, and it will change it for generations, and because this beautiful girl was just meant to be our daughter, and
R-
so
Remind me how old your daughter was when you adopted
she
her?
3.5.
Oh, 3.5. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Had
she
she,
didn't speak. She spoke no English, and when she came home, the beautiful part was just amazing. Her brothers, one brother is a year older, and then another is 2 years older, 3 years older actually, and they were 4.5 and like 6.5. Totally brought her, took her in, became friends. They're tight as can be. The community that we were going to St. Mel's School and Church totally took her in. Everyone was just, the support of our family and our daughter was just beyond belief. It's one of those stories I'm thinking back on, gosh, we're really, really, really fortunate because it doesn't always go that way. But
that's
yeah,
very heartwarming. Thanks for sharing. I just will pass along to ratify what you're saying. One of the most gratifying things for my time and my ex-wife's in the foster care system and seeing all these kids who would all come from dysfunctional situations. If you get them in the right foster home, and
hmm
unfortunately, a lot of foster parents do it to make money from the state,
yeah,
which is unfortunate. But if you get foster parents who are knowledgeable and loving, you can cut off, you don't have to perpetuate the toxicity in future generations. These children can go on to lead productive lives and
yeah,
cut off the toxicity at the first generation.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be self-perpetuating. So it's just it can be a win-win for everybody if you get the right dots in the right holes.
hmm That's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, man. So I told you it was going to be quick and easy. God, that time went by so fast. It's 27 minutes, just like that. You and I could probably talk for hours. Next time you're in LA, you got to look me up so that we can go out and break bread together.
That'd be great. I'll bring you a good report from my parole officer, and so you feel
Of
comfortable
course.
seeing me.
Works
Now,
for
this
me.
has been great, and I appreciate you being the invitation and being
Yeah.
receptive and interested, and for sharing your heartwarming personal story. That was the best thing.
Well, thank you also.